Why taking thyroid medication, especially if you're taking T3 before your blood work, is going to leave you stuck and dosing off of a transient number that's not accurate. I'm very passionate about this because I've been living without a thyroid for over 20 years, and I spent the last 20 years looking at studies and research and interviewing doctors and endocrinologists because I needed to know, now that I've lost this vital organ, how can it be the most optimal with something that's not completely optimal, which is thyroid medication. I've also worked with people all over the world that have come to see me that are being dosed off of this transient peak number. I've worked with their prescriber to optimize them because their blood work was being done after thyroid meds. So here's the biggest thing I think you should understand when we're looking at T3 and blood work and taking T3 medication according to the science and studies. Studies look at T3, exogenous T3 is broken down into two different phases. That first phase is the blood plasma phase, and that second phase is that elimination phase. That first phase is where you're going to see this big peak from taking your thyroid medication. Now, that peak has nothing to do really with what's happening with the tissue. It's literally what your body is doing to move that thyroid medication where it needs to be metabolized and to be utilized at the tissue level. So that peak is usually around 2 to 3 hours after taking your thyroid medication. But again, it's the movement through the bloodstream, not the immediate cellular utilization of T3. Now, that second phase, that elimination phase, is where we're going to see a more stable number when it comes to T3, because it's in this phase where your body's preparing to excrete that T3 and excreting that T3. This number reflects the metabolism of those meds and the utilization of that med at a cellular level. It's going to be a more stable number versus that peak movement of T3 in that first phase. So think of it, first phase is moving and distributing that medication, not utilization, and it's a transient number. The trough and elimination phase is ongoing utilization of that T3. But I think the biggest issue I see, and I get really confused when I see practitioners talk about this, is this idea that T3 is completely gone. You take it, it's going to be gone, which is not true. That 18 to 24-hour half-life, it's the half-life of that peak of that thyroid medication. But what we've seen in studies is that complete elimination of T3 can take 5 to 7 days. So when you're taking that thyroid medication this morning, and then the next morning, you're not going from 0 and then back to whatever amount you're taking from that thyroid medication. You're actually working off of remnants of your previous dose. And in fact, we have seen studies. There was one study I came across this morning where patients reported feeling more optimal on T3 5 to 7 weeks after starting T3. And then that doesn't even take into consideration T4 and if you're medicating with T4.